welcome to yet another edition of Story Talkies. And as we promise you, we have a great line of speakers, and today we are joined by Sridhar Laxman, uh, a very well-known and seasoned coach, and he is known to unleash potentials of the leaders, in fact, lead them to greatness. The conversation that we will have today will delve into his style of coaching, what he has learned all these in all these years, and what he has been able to impart. And somewhere is there a story out there. Uh, Sridhar, welcome to Story Talkies.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Delighted to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Sridhar, let me begin with a question where I think we all delve into that. When you meet people, when you're coaching people, when you're interacting with them, everyone is unique. Everyone brings in their unique values, their unique traits, and they are very distinct in their behavior. And in coaching, you would treat them as individuals, even if they come in groups, right? So, how do you make this balance? How are you able to connect people on a one-on-one basis, but then when they are so diverse? Is there a common thread there?
You have a point there when you talk about, are we unique? Are we similar? Are we different? So it's very interesting. The answer, at least in my observation, my limited observation, is a yes and a no. And I'll tell you why I say this. Everyone has dreams and aspirations. Everyone has goals. Everyone has a desire to excel, to have more in life, to live a better life, to contribute, to do things. At the same time, everyone has fears and limiting beliefs, self-doubts, insecurities, challenges which at some times seem like I can't address this. So it's very interesting. No matter which country, which culture, how senior or junior the person is, how many years they work, whether they're own business or they're running a large corporate, some of these traits come across men, women, all adults. At the same time, we also notice that there is the individuality is so incredibly powerful. It's almost like we are separate and similar. And I know this may not be the answer you're looking for, but that's what makes us so complex a species, that we have what's called polarities in us. I can be this and I can also be that. I need not only be this. So I may be shy and introverted, and there will be times when I will be extroverted and bold and outgoing. I will be cautious and I may be, absolutely adventurous. And these polarities emerge depending on where we are, what we're experiencing, what our state of mind and body is. So to sort of come back to your question, yes, we are unique. Our personalities are unique. The values that you refer to, they drive our behavior. So values, depending on our life stages, are unique. Sometimes our derailers are unique. What may sort of come in my way, how I come in my own way of success may be different from how you may come in your own way. And we all do at some point of time. So yes, both exist. Polarities exist, similarities exist, differences exist. The idea is to observe, right? And not get into putting somebody into a bucket or a box saying, this is how this person is. It's actually, this is how this person is right now under this condition. He or she could be very different under something else. And again, very different from that.
So we talked about individuality, and you said that it's important that the people are able to maintain and able to sustain their individuality, and there's enough space for them to grow within that. But coaching comes with a specific goal, right? A goal in mind. Sometimes the goal is established by the organization that I want my team to better uh, face challenges, to be more stress free, and or maybe they want to be them to be more goal oriented. And these are organization level um, goals that are set. Then individuals may or may not have exact same goal and have different. And so when you're coaching them, when you're talking to them, there is a comfort zone that they are in, right? And when a goal is assigned to them, or a goal that is given to them, or a goal that they are expected to meet, I'm sure there will be resistance.
two or three ways, and these are best practices that have emerged over the years in the space of coaching, Nidhi. Um, all of us resist change at some level. We all want to say we're open to change, we want to make change, we love change, but there are parts of us that are used to the comfort because it feels safe, it feels nice, it feels cozy. Uh, Harsh realities, growth is always outside a comfort zone, and growth comes with uncertainty. So it's always a choice between growth over safety or safety over growth, right? All coaching engagements ideally should begin from a place where stakeholders are aligned, which means who are the stakeholders? There's the organization, could be the manager in that organization, the person going through the journey, let's refer to him or her as the coachee, the coach. Now, unless the coachee, the coach, and the manager are aligned on the expectations, we don't get started. So going back to your example, if the organization expects X amount of change in behavior, and if the coachee is resisting it, we don't get started. We first, the baseline is, do we agree that these are the goals we are going after? If there is any discomfort, if there is any resistance, we wait till that resistance is first resolved internally. Only then do we get started on the journey. The idea is not to push the client in a direction where he or she doesn't want to go.
How do you break
Right?
this resistance?
Well, understand the resistance, bring more awareness to it, understand what is causing the resistance. It could be some fears, it could be some mistaken notions about what the consequences are if I do certain actions or I don't do certain actions. And with greater awareness comes better choices, maybe. When an individual is more aware, he or she gets more clarity. And when there is an increase in clarity, fear usually subsides. Fear and clarity don't coexist in a person at the same time. It's always a seesaw between these two. And I make my clients aware time and again, when you notice fear in you, what is it that you don't know yet? That's allowing this fear to stay. Because when the clarity goes up, the fear subsides. And at one level, we all have fears, right? Fear of losing something or fear of not getting something that is going to be pleasurable for us. So the idea is to come from that space, make the client aware. Awareness is 90% of the journey in all coaching conversations. From that place of awareness comes better choices. Better choices lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better actions and thereby better outcomes.
I understand that coaching and the discipline of coaching has evolved over the years, and there are many certifications available. There are big institutes which are focusing on this discipline, and there are new coaches who are coming out, and that's a great thing for because organizations need them. But standardizations and coaching principle aside, I'm sure as you talked about individuality of your coaches, the coaches also bring in that unique thing that in their style, in their way of doing things, in their repertoire. So, what's that magic that you carry?
I think there are three levels as I see it in coaching. There are the non-negotiable must-have skills that a coach must bring to the table in order for him or her to add tremendous value to the client. Then there is depending on the level of commitment that the coach has to his or her profession, um, there would be continued investment in learning and development of self. And when I say learning and development, it need not be about coaching as a discipline. It is about who am I becoming in the process of being a coach? What internal battles am I facing? What fears do I carry and come into the session? How do I address that? If I'm not still and serene from within, can I really nourish someone in front of me? If I'm not fully present, can I really pick up the nuances of what's happening with my client in the moment? So that's the second piece. The third piece is about how do I go beyond me and the client and look at the space of what's emerging in the moment, in the session. That's a higher order of sort of presence in that moment. We have to come from a place of knowing that as a coach, I'm not here to tell my clients what to do or give them advice or give them tips and guidance. It's very tempting, but each time we do that, we're interfering with their thinking. But if we learn to hold the space, if you're comfortable with silence, if you're comfortable with being courageous enough to call them out when we think they're giving excuses, if you're courageous enough to sort of challenge them on their thinking, each time. And all of that is done with an intent, what's best for my client in the moment. To trust our own intuition and say, in the moment, maybe I'm noticing that you're feeling this. I'm noticing that there's some expression on your face, and I'm wondering what that is. And allowing the client to describe it rather than completing the sentences on behalf of the client. All of this helps provoke higher order of thinking. And that is the goal of all coaching conversations. How do I get my client to think higher than how he or she is thinking today? As a result of which, I know it sounds repetitive, they make better choices. And everything downstream then changes.
So what I'm hearing from you is that a coach also remains a coachee at more in time, because you're learning, you are being aware of yourself. So that's what you expect, or that's what you try with your coachee. So a coach is also a coachee at an individual level, right?
Yes, the coach is a coachee. The coach is all other roles that he or she plays in their lives: parent, father, mother, sibling, someone sometimes feeling like a victim, sometimes feeling being the dominator. All the things that happen in life, we're experiencing it. The difference is, if a coach is mindful enough, he or she can step away and learn to be objective, look at things objectively, not make it personal, not allow the bias and the internal agitation to overtake the cognitive faculties, right? To stay calm and collected, knowing that there are things in our span of control which we can manage, things not in our span of control which we can't manage. Learn to place your attention, energy on what is within your span of control, work with it, and learn to make peace with what's not there. Simply said, easily said, not easy to practice. It requires a lifetime of work. We are all work in progress. We will never get to a point where we say we've done it, this is it, I'm out there, right? We just continue to get better. It's in a way saying pursuit of excellence, right? It's not about perfection. It's pursuing excellence. I'm good today. How do I get better? I'm better than before. How do I go to the next level?
You have brought in the phrase of in the moment many a times in our conversation so far. And when in a moment is a time when you are actually able to connect to the audience and at a one-on-one level, because you are talking about the immediate instant, or that particular instant, as you said, the what's going through their mind. And when it comes to connecting with mind and heart, stories play an interesting role, right? Is storytelling part of your style as well? Like, how are you connecting with people? Because you have to bring them out of their comfort zone. You have to you have to kind of break the barrier between you and the people, because so that they can connect. So, is storytelling a part of your style?
Yeah, storytelling is a very powerful metaphor or a tool or methodology, if I may use it that way. The difference being that, the storytelling is done more often by the client than the coach. And we're creating the space for the stories to emerge. Each one has their own way of describing what's happening in their lives. A similar situation described by two different people would have two different stories, maybe four stories, right? So first and foremost, create a space for those stories to emerge. And this can only happen when the client feels safe in the moment, that I can open up knowing this is a safe space. This is confidential. This is non-judgmental. My coach doesn't think what is right or wrong, good or bad in what I'm sharing. I can emote however I'd like to. And when that client feels that way, he or she will start sharing their stories. And there are incredible stories, maybe. I feel blessed that whatever be my set of choices in life, that I'm doing what I'm doing now, because all I do every day is listen to people's stories. And it's fascinating how many stories exist out there. Stories of courage, stories of persistence, stories of overcoming incredible challenges in life. People have started with nothing, who've been beaten black and blue by life, as a metaphorically, have still emerged out of it, been resilient, grown, and succeeded. And today are giving back, helping people, get through their own difficult journeys. So I feel extremely fortunate and blessed to be in this moment, listening to these stories. When it comes to the coach bringing in stories, it's usually if there is a requirement, if there's a sense, there's an intuition that a story here could bring greater awareness, could bring maybe some new perspectives, some new insights to the client, then the stories are brought in. These stories are never personal because the space is always about the client. It's not about the coach. So it would be a story, an anecdote, a joke, sometimes a drawing, a painting. It could be a video. It could be a piece of music. Anything that evokes new thoughts, new perspectives, new ideas in the client. All of these are stories. And the idea is to continue to stay in the moment. The reason I say in the moment, Nidhi, is that more often than not, our minds are either worrying about something that happened in the past or anxious about what may not happen in the future. Rarely are we living in the moment. And the reality is we are always actually alive only in the moment. We're moving from one moment to one moment to one moment to one moment, all through our lives. But our minds are racing. We're racing back to the past or to the future. And neither of these helps us. So our role as coaches is to be in the moment with the client. What's happening right now? When you say X, what does that look like in the moment? Now the client can paint manifestations for me. Sridhar, this is how that particular meeting went. This is what the board of directors think about that particular initiative. This is how the conversation went. This is how I felt. It's easy for me to get caught up in the manifestations with the client and get lost in those rabbit holes. But my role is to stay with the person who's sitting in front of me. What's happening to my client when they talk about this manifestation? How do they feel when they talk about that incident? How does it make them feel when they look at this incident that happened or that particular choice that they made? It's always about going back to the self. Those are learning moments for the client because these manifestations will keep changing all through life. Today it is these colors, tomorrow it'll be another set of colors, another set of challenges. The person is the same. It is an internal journey. It is not an external journey for the client. It is getting to knowing self, know thyself, right? That's the journey. And the more time they spend getting to know themselves better, again, going back to what I've repeated earlier, better quality of choices, thereby better outcomes.
What about the coach's story? What about your journey? If you can tell us some, I know there are a lot of confidential stuff that you will not tell us, and we won't ask you that, but some interesting anecdotes, some interesting stuff that you have done because you have more than a decade of coaching experience and you have been coaching people from different industries, different roles, and the change in the past 10 years, the whole landscape has completely changed. So in this changing environment, and therefore the kind of requirement or the kind of pull that they have towards coaching is also changing. So what are the what have you seen as a change, and any anecdotes, anything that you can share with us?
Without getting into the specific details of the client, respecting their privacy and confidentiality, there are 2 or 3 themes that I can sort of share. One is about how we are brought up in our lives and what influence that has on us as we grow up and become adults, how functional, dysfunctional our behaviors become over a period of time, right? So it's important for the clients to become aware of where they've come from, what has shaped their values in life, what has shaped their behaviors, their thoughts, their sort of map of this world, how we look at the world is also shaped by how we've been brought up. So there was one particular client I worked with who had a very abusive relationship with the parent. The parent was an alcoholic, so they had trouble managing their behavior. And the child had learned to sort of respond to an aggressive, drunk parent by screaming. And every time the child would scream, the parent would back off. And this comes up in the conversation, right? I'm not figuring it out until I hear this from the client. Over the years, they made that their default behavior without realizing it. Anytime they feel threatened at the workplace, their default response seems to be to scream back, which is not serving them because in a corporate workplace, we have to treat each other with respect and dignity. We can't be out of control. So the organization was aware of it. They realized how this was impacting the leader because The leader was pretty successful otherwise, grown very well, pretty senior in the ranks, yet a lot of conflict. And only during the coaching conversations, because it was a safe space, we started exploring what's happening, what is the meaning they're associating with conflict, where does this come from? And the story goes all the way back to childhood. Now, this story is not shared by the client with colleagues because it's hard for people to be vulnerable without the fear of being judged, right? So that holds them back from sharing. But it comes up in a coaching conversation. It could come up in a counseling or a therapy conversation for that matter. I must mention at this point that, the idea of any coaching conversation is not to delve into the past. It is to know where are you today, where do you want to go? Only if the client wishes to speak about the past, he or she brings it up. We only look at it to learn something from it. The coach, as a coach, I'm not capable or certified or qualified to support anyone or heal or address their past. That's the zone of counselors and therapists. They're great at it. They're extremely talented. They're trained, they're educated in that space. So it's important for me to be mindful of that. Look at it, but not necessarily stay there in the past. Bring the client back to the present and say, where do you want to go from here? So you are aware, this is the behavior you demonstrate. How else could you look at conflict as you go forward? If you were not associated with your childhood with that particular behavior that you've repeated, how else could you respond? And a certain set of choices come up in the week. And the client then starts practicing those choices. It doesn't come easily, right? Years of conditioned ways of responding to be changed takes time. Then they start replacing these thoughts and behaviors over a period of time by taking more ownership for their behavior. 6 months or so later, I received an email from the client that they had won an award for being the most collaborative leader in that strategic business unit. A second story I can think of is another client who came from a very, very rough background from one of the remotest parts of the country. The parent had to sell off the land in order to educate the child. Only child in the family, first child in the family to be educated in all the generations. And today the client leads teams of about 2,000 people in a very large global IT organization. Hasn't been easy, right? There's a lot of stuff that they've gone through in order to get here. And because of that, there are certain challenges in the way they respond to the work environment, to the pressures, to their own dreams and aspirations. What do I deserve? Should I spend so much on myself? Should I get myself these things? Given where I've come from, my values about money are X, but I'm living a lifestyle which seems to be not necessarily aligned to those values. So different conflicts of different people, right? But it's important to understand their stories. Where are they coming from? What has happened to make them who they are today? And that need not necessarily define them. What incredible things await them? What are their dreams and aspirations? Because the natural tendency for each one of us is to focus on our limitations. And the role of a coach is to keep bringing back the client to the possibilities that exist in front of you. And the more often the pendulum swings to the right, better will be the quality of choices and outcomes as they move forward.
Very heartening to see these examples, and the fact that our choices are basically conditioned, like based on our conditioning, and it's important to break that conditioning and come out of it. I know, as you mentioned, keep on saying it's not easy. That has to be done somewhere. You have to make a beginning. So we take back a lot of lessons from you, Sridhar, and it's been not just a conversation, it's very enlightening. I personally can relate, and I hope all of us in my team and all those who are listening to it will get something interesting and something insightful and things that we can practice, like in the moment stuff that you mentioned. It's very, very powerful. And yeah, there are few moments in our life when we are truly happy. And if I look back and see, there are moments where actually when I was in the moment, I was really happy. And the next moment you start thinking to, okay, do I have something planned? Is there a call coming in? Is there a client meeting? And then there goes your moment. So I know we are all pulled in both the directions, but yeah, we have to find time for being here and now. So thank you for giving us that insight. Really, really pleasure talking to you, Sridhar. We hope to connect with you more, and maybe we'll talk again on Story Talkies. Thank you very much for giving us time.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Absolute pleasure speaking with you. I love the questions that you brought in. I sincerely hope that this is of value to your listeners, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up in any form later. But again, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak about what I do. I'm very passionate about coaching, and I think, like I said at the start, I feel privileged and blessed that I got this opportunity to listen to people's stories. Like your brand name says, stories. Storytelling is extremely powerful, irrespective of who's sharing the story. And stories is what has brought us all the knowledge and wisdom over the centuries. And I'm hoping that we are contributing in a small way to the stories that people learn to listen to and tell as they move forward. So thanks again. Pleasure speaking with you.